Suyukwo Kwakutre. The police have arrested 3 people for their alleged involvement in an alleged fake kidnapping and pregnancy of a woman at Takrady. Police investigations have suggested that Josephine Penyin Mensah, the said pregnant woman who was allegedly kidnapped in Takrady about 2 weeks ago, may have conspired with other persons over her disappearance. The police in a statement said the 3 persons have been arrested for further questioning over conspiracy charges. It said the supposed victim, who is also now a suspect during the interrogation, mentioned the European hospital in Takrady as a hospital she visited for antenatal reviews and assessments, but investigations carried out at the hospital showed no records of her antenatal visits. But the woman's husband and some residents insisted that Josephine Penyin Mensah was pregnant, leaving many with mixed feelings about the situation. Correspondent Desmond Kujo is on the line to give us some updates. Good afternoon, Desmond.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Desmond, what was the mood of the community in which the lady resides when you visited the place?
I don't know how to say if the people, I would say they were in a bad mood because all of those people gathered, including family members, friends and relations who have come to the police, as well as other organizations who are just come just to find out what is happening. They were cursing, insulting, chanting, because some of them were of the belief that the lady was indeed pregnant, and that the police collaborated with the original minister to destroy the image of the woman and the family. So that is the concern of the people as we went there this morning.
So on what basis were they disputing the examination reports of doctors at the Axim Government Hospital?
According to them, they saw the ladies when she took seat, when the stomach was going, the lady was with her, they were fetching water for her to bath and do so many things. And that physically, they all knew and they believed to be true that the lady was indeed pregnant. So to them, for the doctor and the police to come out to say that the lady was not pregnant and that she faked it, it's something that they cannot take it. So them, yes, they are trying to destroy the woman and make it a story untrue. That is why they're all angry. When we got there this morning, they were shouting. Some are wearing red armbands and insulting and cursing and shouting over their bodies because what the police and the medical officers are saying is untrue.
Okay, so they say the police report is untrue, but did they show you the antenatal records of the woman or any medical records to prove their claims?
Unfortunately, none of the family members is ready to come out to fight with any documentary evidence that this is my medical document indicating that I visited this particular health facility. I was treated for A, B, C, and D, or this is the service that hospital rendered. Nobody has come out with any evidence of that sort to dispute what the police and the medical officers are saying. So we are still waiting for them to come out with evidence. We've heard rumors from these people, so we cannot firm it up. But what they are saying is that the antenatal booklet was with the lady when she was kidnapped, and that she might probably have lost it on the way. So they did not have that booklet. So as of now, no evidence whatsoever from the family members to prove that the lady was pregnant.
All right then, thank you so much, Desmond Kujo, our Western Regional Correspondent. Desmond Kujo will give us updates on the lady who has reappeared after getting missing for almost 2 weeks. Now, still in Takrady, the husband and elder brother and sister of Josephine Penyin Mensah, the woman who is alleged to have faked kidnapping and pregnancy, have declined interview with GBC when GBC News contacted them. We'll update you on the matter as it unfolds. You're still watching News Hour live on GBC News. We also have on the line a clinical psychologist with the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital, Dr. Ruth Owusu Entry, to help us understand the issues from the psychological perspective. Good afternoon, Doc. Good afternoon, Doctor. We're still trying to establish contact with a clinical psychologist with the Komfo Teaching Hospital, Dr. Ruth Owusu Entry, to help us understand the issues from the psychological perspective. Good afternoon, Dr. Ruth Owusu Entry.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, Doc, what do you make of the stories on the airwaves concerning the alleged fake pregnant woman who alleged kidnapping the other time?
So, to clarify, I'm a psychiatrist, not a clinical psychologist.
All right, madam. Thank you for the clarification.
Concerning the issues about this case, I am not privy to the medical report, but these are all alleged complaints or reports that the pregnancy was faked. In mental health, if indeed this was an unreal pregnancy, we would have to further assess her to rule out any form of psychological issues. We have diagnosis of cases like pseudosciasis, which are recognizable mental disorders in women who sort of can present with pregnancy. They have all the signs and symptoms of pregnancy. The only thing missing is a fetus or is a baby in the womb. These women usually come with a protruded abdomen. Most of the time they have missed their menses for months. They look heavy and they have all the feelings, the nausea, vomiting, that vomiting people, I mean that's pregnant women experience. And yes, there is no baby, and they so much still believe that they are pregnant. That is a form of a mental or psychological problem that could be happening to this woman, but of course, she will need to be further assessed.
So what do you think can bring finality to this matter?
We would have to assess if we want to confirm that this is a pseudosciasis or this was a deliberate faking of a pregnancy. When people are going through the mental aspect, which is a pseudosciasis, they don't know that they are not pregnant. They sort of just believe they are pregnant. They hold on to that belief despite all contradictory evidence, despite all pregnancy tests proving negative and all that. And then there could be the real faking where the person is not mentally ill, they know they are not pregnant and they are just faking it. In each case, the person will need some support. And like I'm saying, if there are some indication that this was an unreal pregnancy, I will recommend that this woman get some psychiatric or mental assessment so that appropriate help and support can be offered her.
All right, thank you very much, Doctor. Dr. Ruth Owusu Entry is a psychiatrist with the Komfo Teaching Hospital. Let's move to the Volta region. The Public Accounts Committee is to make a case for audit clearance on government workers prior to promotions, transfers and retirements. The committee believes the move will help address issues of embezzlement and financial misappropriations for which the state may not be able to hold workers accountable after their active service. The Vice Chairman of the committee, Mrs. Samuel Atta Mills, made these remarks during the committee sitting at the Volta Regional Capital.
Which will rule with advice from certain eminent civilians in the country.
Born on the 23rd of September 1931, Ignatius Kutu
It is a nightmare dealing with the filth in a
The gutters are choked with garbage. The streets are a jumble of filth. The beauty of the serene beaches is
Well, we'll bring a video to that story from the Volta Regional Capital Hall in a jiffy. But now, provisional data released by the Ghana Statistical Service puts Ghana's current population at 30.8 million. The age group composition of the population is not available until 18th November, when the final figures will be out. On the line is the Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, Dr. Mensa Brampa, to help us examine some of the details in the provisional data and their implications for development planning. Good afternoon, Dr. Mensa Brampa.
Good afternoon.
And
to you and all your listeners.
Thank you very much for joining us. So now that we know officially that our population has increased by 6.1 million from 24.7 million in 2010, how will this affect development planning?
Thank you very much. Let me say that this was anticipated. And so if you look at the projections we've made with our planning and all that we've done, we've used the figure 31 million at this time. And so the 30.8 million, we get shy of it by 200,000. So it is very, very important that the population increase. We would like to emphasize an asset, and at the same time, it could be a liability if not well managed. The asset part of it, what is crucial, is that our population growth rate has decreased. So it decreased from around 2.3% to now around 2.1% rate, which means that the number of people who have been added in terms of children is far lower than the last census period. The implication is that we have less dependent population. So we have more people who have the potential to work and within the working age group. Okay? And that means that we have really a demographic dividend that we need to explore. If more of these people are put to work, are in a productive venture, are skilled in such a way that they can enhance our production levels, then we have a huge prospect for our growth and eventually contribute immensely to our development. On the other hand, if we are not able to take advantage of this huge potential of working population, then it becomes a liability for us in the future. So putting in the right place of education, of giving them skills, of helping them so that they can be healthy, eat the right food, then we are putting them on the path for which production activities will be handled. The other thing which is also quite interesting about this population is what we call the agglomeration in the urban areas. So you realize that Greater Accra, though in a small special coverage, is now taking over from Ashanti region as the area with the highest population, the region with the highest population. Ashanti region has been leading since 1970 but Greater Accra has taken over. But it is also followed immediately by Ashanti region, and then eventually by Eastern and then Central region. This agglomeration is also a huge market, because then when you produce, you enter these areas, you have a large potential of people to buy from you. It also provides a huge potential of agglomeration of labor, which means that if industrial activities are generated in these areas, it has a huge access to labor. So this is the potential which this information, this preliminary information is bringing to us. And a lot of things we anticipated in our plan. But the most important thing about this whole census is that it's now giving a validation. It's giving us the right information where there's no doubt about it. It reduces speculation, it reduces estimation, and now this is the reality for us. It is the most interesting time for planning, because now you are very certain of the most important ingredient, the human capacity and the number of people that you are planning for. So for preliminary figures, this is what I can say. But I can't end without saying that we also register there are more women, the more female than male.
Yeah.
Which means that we now have the right and the basis to give more attention to female population. At first it was speculation, although the last census it was the same. We're not sure whether it's going to repeat it, but now it is very certain. So if you are able to bring more female population into the productive activities, to really be the core of production activity instead of being at the periphery, taking over, moving from the small-scale informal activity to a more large-scale production, more formal activities, and then we'll be harnessing that potential that we have. So it tells us straight away that we now have to listen more to the female population in our development planning in terms of beneficiaries and in terms of contributors.
Doc, hasn't it been the same for the past years? We're registering more female than male.
But now you realize that
these
the
structures haven't been put in place.
It's been the same. Yeah. It's been almost the same, let me put it that way, but now it's so clear. In the last 10 years, anything could happen in terms of changes. But now it has been affected and reaffirmed by the counting that what we have been speculating is now a reality. And therefore, it will be making gestures. Now we need to take action around it.
All right,
and make sure that we bring our female population to be at the center of production for that.
All right, finally, Doctor, from the data, 15% of all structures in Greater Accra are metal containers. Is this not an indication that many people in the region do not have decent accommodation? And if that is the case, what appropriate decision would you advise government to take to remedy the situation?
Yeah, this is very, very important. We're looking at it in terms of short term and also on the long term. The short term is that, yes, we need to really enhance the housing production activity. Housing is now very expensive because of factors of land, factors of the inputs which we use for housing. All these are expensive things. And then also the means of acquiring even the land is more expensive than sometimes the price of the land. So we need to look at that. If we're able to use a lot of local input into housing, the cost of housing might reduce. If we're able to strengthen and then make the acquisition process of acquiring land also easier, it might also reduce the cost. And these are two areas which I know in our medium-term plan the sector is really tackling. The use of local materials. You can talk about the discovery of a large deposit of clay in Eastern region, which is being considered by the sector as key input to serve as a substitute instead of importing all these clinker and cement and all that. So that is one area that we need to look at. And if you look at the medium term and the long term perspective, all these things have been provided. The other thing we also look at is in the medium term and the long term. We need to also ensure that it's a balanced development. Instead of everybody moving into Accra, moving into Kumasi. And then we've also seen a new trend of people moving into northern region. These three agglomerations, we must be able to plan in such a way that we see balanced development, be able to set up opportunities to attract other production activities to other areas within the country, so that instead of drifting from rural to urban and even urban to the metropolitan areas, we will be able to develop our secondary cities so that become alternative absorbers of this population. Instead of everybody coming to Accra and then struggling for accommodation, we could provide alternatives for them in these secondary cities where there are bigger opportunities for obtaining, cheaper housing opportunities and facilities.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Doc. Dr. Mensah Brampa is the Director General of the National Development Planning Commission. If he had lived, Colonel Ignatius Kutu Achampon, the military officer who led the bloodless coup d'etat against the government of then Prime Minister Kofi Abufabuzia on 13 January 1972, would have been 90 years old today. Ike Achampon's coup brought about the suspension of the 1969 Constitution under the Second Republic, the prescribing of political parties and political activity, as well as the detention of those whom he suspected of threatening his government, a junta which he called the National Redemption Council, NRC. He became head of state until 5th July 1978, when he was deposed in a palace coup and later executed by firing squad. As we mark what would have been his 4th and 10-year birthday, we bring you a report flashing back on the events around that second successfully executed coup by the Ghana Armed Forces in 1972.
The military government, which will rule with advice from certain eminent civilians in the country.
Born on the 23rd of September 1931, Ignatius Kutu Achampon was born to Catholic parents in the Ashanti origin. He attended the Roman Catholic schools at Trabom and the St. Peter's School, also Catholic, in Kumasi, both in Ghana's Ashanti region. He attended the then Central College of Commerce at Aguna Sredru in the Central region. From records, he was commissioned into the Ghana Army in 1959 and served as a member of the UN peacekeepers during the Congo crisis. You may recall that the first military coup d'etat occurred on 24 February 1966 when Colonel E.K. Kutuka and his brigade major, Major A.A. Ifrifa, overthrew the government of Ghana's first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, leader of the Convention People's Party, CPP, at that time. On 13th January 1972, Lieutenant Colonel Ignatius Kutu Achampon, then commanding the 1st Infantry Brigade of the Ghana Armed Forces in an acting or temporary status, led a bloodless coup d'etat against the democratically elected government of Prime Minister Dr. Kofi Abufabuzia whilst he was in London for medical treatment. This happened to be the second successful military coup by the Ghana Armed Forces in Ghana, despite the first coup d'etat occurring just after 6 years. Dr. Kofi Abufabuzia was accused of economic mismanagement and arbitrary arrest, both characteristics of the former Nkrumah regime, which was ousted by an army coup in 1966. The Kutuka International Airport was closed to incoming flights, and telephone and telegram links with the rest of the world was cut. There are still a few people alive today who recall the announcement on a radio broadcast that fateful day on January 13, 1972, when Colonel Achampon said, quote, Dr. Kofi Buzia has been dismissed and the army had taken power, unquote. From where he was in London, Dr. Buzia received the news of his overthrow with dismay, insisting in a statement issued soon after that, quote, the people of Ghana will resist this selfish and senseless coup d'etat and overthrow it, unquote. But alas, that was not to be, as Colonel Kutu Achampon held on to the reins of power in Ghana. Notable historical changes and events introduced or implemented in the country during the period under Achampon include the change from the imperial to the metric system of measurement, change from driving on the left, to right-hand traffic in Operation Keep Right, Operation Feed Yourself, a program to develop self-reliance in agriculture, national reconstruction aimed at promoting employment and skill for workers, facelift projects in cities, and the reconstruction or upgrading of stadia to meet international standards. There were, however, widespread accusations of both the encouragement and endorsement of corruption in the country under his rule. It is worthy to note that a few months after Colonel Echampong came to power on 27th April 1972, former President Kwame Nkrumah died in exile in Romania. By this time, power in Ghana had changed hands a few times since Dr. Nkrumah's overthrow. It was Colonel Echampong who allowed Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's body to be returned home to Ghana and buried on July 9, 1972, at the village of his birth at Nkrofo, following the 4th June military uprising that brought Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings to power in 1979. Colonel Ignatius Kutu Echampong was court-martialed and executed by firing squad on 16 June 1979.
The Trades Union Congress TUC, with support from the Danish Trades Union Development Agency, has organized a sensitization forum in Kumasi for informal economy members on the COVID-19 vaccination and recovery process. There were representatives from the Ifya Kobi Market, United Petty Traders Association, the Central Market, United Porters Association, Professional Glazers Association, Pragya Association, the Musicians Union of Ghana, and the Ghana Actors Guild.
The purpose of this forum was to court informal workers to make themselves available for the COVID vaccination and to ignore the myths surrounding it. The Deputy Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Mr. Joshua Ansa, said the fight against COVID-19 is a collective effort and can be fully accomplished with workers in the informal sector. A public health specialist at the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital, Dr. Joshua Arthur, explained to GBC News the benefits of the vaccine and dismissed the myths surrounding the jab.
We've explained all the research that goes into approving vaccines, making sure that they are safe. We've linked them to a lot of practices that we even have traditionally in terms of protecting or making our children strong, how vaccines have helped. We made reference to measles, polio, and the rest. Now we don't see disease. Clearly, vaccination has come to help us, and it will be interesting that it is now that vaccination is going to change.
Some participants shared their views about the forum.
Yaria ayakwan kura yenim baby if ye pese tore ase enu nti na difference na ba mesre mo bi anko wo bi na bibie ni ho be yo pia.
Public Accounts Committee is to make a case for audit clearance on government workers prior to promotions, transfers and retirements. The committee believes the move will help address issues of embezzlement and financial misappropriations for which the state may not be able to hold workers accountable after their active service. The vice chairman of the committee, Mr. Samuel Atamils, made these remarks during the committee sitting at Ho, the Volta Regional Capital.
The ongoing Public Accounts Committee sitting at Ho in the Volta region is to consider the reports of the Auditor General on the accounts of the Metropolitan, Municipal and District Assemblies and other public institutions for 2017, the year under review. Reports on 3 technical universities, 4 colleges of education, as well as some second-cycle educational institutions in the Volta, Eastern, Oti and the Greater Accra regions are expected to be considered in a 6-day national exercise. On day 1 of the sitting, the committee looked at reports on educational institutions in the 4 regions, issues of quotations without payment vouchers, unretired impress, unpaid rents and contract irregularities on Get Fund projects were recurrent. Other issues that caught the attention of the committee included failures to obtain VAT invoices, irregularities in purchases, non-payment of withholding taxes, abandonment of Get Fund projects, among others. Various educational heads and other officials took turns to respond to questions on the issues. Members of the committee were not happy about the lack of interest shown by some heads of educational institutions about reports on their institutions by the Auditor General. They therefore urged the heads to take active interest in such reports for their own good. In an interview with GBC News, the Vice Chairman of the committee, Mr. Samuel Atamils, noted that the committee will make a recommendation for audit clearance on government workers prior to promotions, transfers and retirements to help hold them accountable to their stewardship.
There should be something called an audit clearance. So if you want a promotion, we need to do an audit on you and find out what other crimes have you committed that you are leaving your new place for. So promotion, check and make sure if they have any audit issues. Transfers, check and make sure they have any issues. And if it's a retirement, and they have embezzled some funds, or they have so many infractions, put a stoppage on his retirement account to make sure that all those things are corrected.
The Member of Parliament for South Dai and a member of the committee, Mr. Roxton Dafel-Makbo, said there is a need to reform and empower the committee to be more biting in its works.
As international trade increasingly gets complicated, strategy would claim the trump card. World cocoa powerhouse Ghana is aiming at heavy population centers such as China and India for increased exports. It comes against the backdrop of a recent Chinese scare in which the Asian tiger released her maiden cocoa produce onto the market. As government unveiled members of the reconstituted board of the cocoa processing company, it became pointedly clear that Ghana is not taking chances in the jostle for greater share of the market. Napoleon Atukito reports.
Cocoa is a cash crop not strange to any part of the world. And so why would Ghana take the pains to popularize their own cocoa in certain target areas? The low-hanging fruits could be reduction in prices, value addition to boost product quality, or to pursue aggressive marketing strategy intended to whet appetite for the product. These approaches may come up against the competition that continues to evolve with new dimensions. The trade secret that will see Ghana make the inroads on map of the global cocoa production and market remain under wraps. However, you get the sense of how the trend could be in statements by the Agricultural Minister, Dr. Owusu Akoto, and the retained board chairman of the Cocoa Processing Company CPC, Dr. Kweku Owusu.
What has been achieved is nothing compared to what is ahead of us. Cocoa Processing Company is still in the woods, and its indebtedness to Ghana Cocoa Board and to other debtors are all very clear to us. I've been doing my part in attracting capital to invest in this company. And indeed, the latest one is the approach that I directed from the Middle East, the United Arab Emirates, to come to visit you to see the possibilities of collaboration.
The overall improved performance of CPC, as you indicate, has attracted attention of two renowned international financial institutions, including Badia, as you rightly pointed out, who are currently working with us to fund a complete retooling of our machinery and equipment, and to provide working capital to ensure uninterrupted bean supplies for our operations.
It does seem that a stepping stone to the party will be local patronage of Ghana's cocoa and increased support for farmers. These, especially local taste for cocoa, will be mitigating factors against falling commodity prices on the world market. As indicated by the board chairman of the Cocoa Processing Company, production levels have improved on the back of cost efficiency. Average annual cocoa revenue to Ghana is about $2 billion, with production of raw cocoa beans at nearly 1 million tons. She remains world's second largest producer behind La Côte d'Ivoire, which has a haul more than double of Ghana's production levels. A carrot and stick affair, as Ghana aims at topping the table on global cocoa chart whilst keeping an eagle eye on the race from behind. Napoleon Atukito reporting.
65,322 students are sitting for this year's West African Senior Secondary Certificate Examination (WASSCE) in the Eastern Region. The Eastern Regional Minister, Mrs. Seth Kwame Champon, has visited some of the examination centers and expressed satisfaction about the conduct of the exams. West African Senior Secondary Certificate Examination (WASSCE) started in August with practical courses, while the oral and written papers began on the first day of September across the country. With examinations well into their second month, the Eastern Regional Minister, Mr. Seth Kwame Champon, paid a visit to some of the examination centers to get first-hand information about the conduct of the exams. At Okuapiman School in Ikropon, of the 1,105 registered candidates, 36 students were absent, and 34 of the absentees were visually impaired students, and they were excluded from the mathematics papers, while one student had unfortunately lost her life and the other is pregnant. At the Mount Sinai SHS, the exams were going on smoothly. However, 3 of the 6 candidates who did not show up got pregnant. Mr. Champon said absenteeism out of pregnancy is a major challenge that must be addressed holistically by all stakeholders involved in education.
We've been using our faith-based institutions to admonish them, encourage them to stay away from openly consummation of sex. And I am of the opinion that when I look at the numbers, it is not frightening. Not frightening in a sense that if you look at the number on roll, and 4 or 5 are those who are absent, and these are ones who are heavily getting close to giving birth. And so health-wise, medical advice is not allowing them to show up to write the examination. It is not a good news for us to be smiling and laughing over, but it has really happened. That's the reality, and we have to face this reality and speak to the issues so that going forward, parents will also be up and doing, as well as school managers.
A final year student of the Ebri Senior High Technical School, Christabel Amponsa, spoke to GBC News on her expectations in the examination.
It was kind of tough somehow, but it was okay. Everything was okay.
Other schools visited included Methodist Girls SHS, Manfe Presbyterian Senior High Technical School, Latte, Benkum SHS, and Mampon Presbyterian SHS. You're still watching News Hour live on GBC News and GTV. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with business. Please stay on.
Live from GBC Studio 1, this is The Breakfast Show.